Jetzt sind es noch genau 5 Minuten bis zum Start. Second run will be started in
Home of sledding activities for 120 years, Oberhof, Germany in 1931 hosted the first ever FIBT World Championships, a two-man bobsled event, 4 times over the years. The Luge World Championships have been here, most recently in 2023. Meantime, this season, 2 World Cups being staged here in Thuringia. Men's singles earlier today. In 3rd place in run number 1, Nico Gleicher. The Germans, who were shut out of the podium last time we were here in Oberhof, have the top 2 positions, with 52-time World Cup winner Felix Lach leading the way, and the hottest luger over the past 3 seasons, Max Langenhahn, with a fairly safe lead after run number 1 in search of his 18th career World Cup victory, all of those wins in the last couple of seasons. Welcome back to the coverage. I'm Tim Singer, joined by Team USA's 3-time Olympian, Summer Britcher. Summer, you were just outside of the booth after the first run. Tell us about the conditions. We can see what we see, but how does it feel?
Well, I'm not too happy I left my rain jacket at home.
Okay.
It has gotten a little bit warmer, a little bit more rainy out. In the first run, we saw the ice hold up shockingly well for the conditions, and with fewer sleds in this second run, I actually don't think we should expect the weather to play too much into affecting how you do based on where you are in the order.
In case you missed it yesterday, 2 doubles races and women's singles, and all of those races were won by either Germany or Austria. But as we mentioned in run number 1, track records fell in all 3 of those races despite warm conditions. Now, as far as the track, no record earlier today. We don't anticipate that happening, but tell us a little bit more, Summer, about some of the challenges we saw in run number 1 here in Oberhof.
So Oberhof is a unique track because it's only a luge track, not bobsled and skeleton. So a lot of the transitions are shaped a lot differently than we're used to seeing on other tracks in the world. And so it's so important to have a lot of height in some of these curves to really swing you from curve to curve, build momentum. However, when you aim just a little bit wrong and that height's in the wrong spot, it can send an athlete too early to a curve, causing big skids, big mistakes, as well as we've seen a lot of mistakes in the lower part of the track. But here we have our POV video. Starting up top, we see some long curves, so important to really stretch back and be smooth. This is curve 7, and now this sets up into these big swinging curves. Curve 8, you need a lot of height to swing into curve 9, swing into curve 10 to get off and have an early entrance to curve 11, and that's where we saw a lot of mistakes. A lot of small mistakes, but they cost a lot of time. Now here's curve 13. This is where we saw a lot of more visible mistakes in this straightaway. We saw athletes skidding, hitting the wall, coming late to this final curve, this Kreisel, which is a full curve that crosses over itself, so a full circle. And we saw a lot of athletes having mistakes in that lower part, which don't cost quite as much time because the further down the track you are when you make a mistake, the less time it has to impact you. But still, it will cost you a few positions.
Beautiful panorama, and I mean that literally and literally, because not only the scenery, but the hotel off in the distance is called the panorama.
The panorama, that's right. You could kind of see in that last view some of the woodworking coverage of the track that I was talking about earlier. It's really beautifully done. They have these new wood and metal covers that were part of the renovations a few years ago.
As we look at page number 2, you can see Max has a pretty good lead. 1700s is a lot in the sport of luge. There will be a good fight, if all things are equal, without mistakes, between places number 2 and 6 or 7, perhaps, between all of those Austrians fighting to get on the podium positions. Really quickly, you've mentioned several times how luge is the only sport competed here. However, bobsledders have over the years trained here, and Oberhof has produced some great Olympic champions in the sport of bobsleigh, including Wolfgang Hoppe and Andre Lange. And in some ways, Summer, that may make them better bobsledders if they can handle this course.
Maybe. I know they definitely can't take a 4-man down this track. I don't think it would fit in the transitions, but I think maybe like monobob. And I've seen some skeleton athletes train here before, but they don't even have, they normally, for bobsled and skeleton, they have a different entrance to the track. They have a long, flat ramp because they actually run to start their sled, and they don't have that here. So it kind of minimizes their training, but maybe makes them focus on the ice and actually sliding a little bit more than their start time. times.
Johnny Gustafson of the USA went off early. He had a lot of mistakes in run number 1, and coming off of a 20th place result last week in Winterberg, he'll look to put down a clean one here and then at least move up perhaps into the middle teens with his placing.
That's right, and it's being 20th is an interesting place to be in now with this format this year, because obviously, you would have hoped to have done better in the first run, but he has nothing to lose. He can't drop back. He knows he's 20th or better, so he can only move up, only improve his standing, so he can put everything on the line in this run and really lay it back. So far, he is having a better run than the first run.
His first run time to keep an eye on was 43.644, and you're seeing the total time, but his second run time will briefly flash up here, and it's a 43.535, so better than
a little more than a
tenth
tenth of a second better.
Yeah.
So he had some improvements there.
So to correct you, Summer, I think you actually, in run number 2, the way it is now, you can fall back, because if any of these athletes crash and get a do not finish, they don't get put back into 20th place. They move behind the one-run athletes, which is kind of strange, isn't it?
I'm not sure about that. I thought that's what it was, but I think some people were talking about it the other day, that you do hold 20th even if you crash, but I would have to check.
All right.
Because I'm honestly not sure. So we can at least say, barring a crash, as long as you cross the finish line in contact with your sled, you won't move back from 20th.
And you know what? Some of our viewers would probably know better than we. So we'll see if they write on it.
Yeah, hop in the comments, check the IRO.
And here's Anton Dukosh, top 10 in his last 2 events on the World Cup for Ukraine. The 29-year-old from the city of Lviv, which is the cultural center in the nation of Ukraine. And Ken, writing in this morning from North Carolina, lets us know that Oberhof has held para bobsled World Cups some years.
Oh, interesting. And that makes sense, because in para bobsled, they have a controlled start to start all of the sleds at the same momentum. I'm not sure the exact system they use, but they don't need the push start space.
Check out Ken's excellent website, Sliding on Ice, for up-to-the-minute results and athlete profiles. A great read.
This is a pretty nice run, but he is 600ths behind, but they were only 300ths apart in the first run.
So Johnny's picked up 1. That's all he can hope for. Anton Dukosh, he'll fall back a little bit this weekend. For the most part, it's been a pretty solid season for this Ukrainian. He's made it into the second run in all but 2 races. Anton will be in competition.
One thing I love is how absolutely supportive the Ukrainian fans are. I can't see the comment section right now, but I'm sure there's about 5 comments supporting Anton and Ukrainian flags, and I think it's so great how many people tune in to support.
I was going to say 5 comments and 500 Ukrainian flags, which is sort of like Main Street, Lake Placid.
Yeah,
Mateusz Sokovic of Poland, 28 years old, from the town of Wrocław. Mateusz has been cruising along on the World Cup for about 7 or 8 seasons now. And has had a few top 10 results. Really has fallen off a little bit in the last couple of years. Equipment, and as I mentioned earlier today, a little bit of a lack of depth in the program, unfortunately.
And that is quite a challenge, because having teammates to push you is a huge benefit. He's dropped his feet there a little bit to help with his correction and make sure the sled stayed straight on line. So that cost him some time, but it's better to drop your feet than to go totally sideways into a curve. So he did what he needed to do, and he maintained his position.
And I ask this often, I'm interested in your take on it. Is the dropping the feet an instinct or a conscious maneuver to right the sled, or can it be both?
It can be both. So, when you're first learning, dropping your feet is like an instinct. It's a panic. It's wanting to stop. But you see here the way he does it. his sled is about to lose total control, and he uses that foot drop to very calmly steer the sled in a way that probably maintains stability more than with the pressures that were impacting the sled. Sometimes dropping your foot, it's frowned upon, but it can maintain a little bit more stability while you correct the sled.
Berezinch, as you see, 17th after run number 1. That actually equaled his start time as well. He was the 17th fastest start. Latvians are usually pretty quick up here at the top of the track. So far, the second fastest start time behind Sokovic.
I would really like to see him put his head back a little bit more. He's having an all right run, but there's a lot that can be gained from really a pushed back position on the sled.
And now he's got a little better aerodynamic. Quick peek into 14. Gimp's in the lead by 0.3 of a second. He'll hang on to his spot, hope to move up a couple. That's a trained skill, getting that sled back, or is it just a question of overcoming doubt and nerves?
Getting the sled back?
Getting your head back.
Oh, head
Keeping
back.
The head. Right.
It's trained, and what you'll see a lot with a lot of the younger athletes sometimes, if an athlete's having a hard time maintaining position for the whole track, you might see them in sections where they're more confident or where it really matters, pushing that position more. So in any long straightaway, aerodynamics is so much more important. So we saw him making more of an effort out of curve 13 into that straightaway to have good position.
World Cup debut and making it into the second run for the youngest of the Germans, 19-year-old Marco Lager. He's from the town of Schillersee, which is near the town of Miesbach. And if you know Luge, you know one of the greatest, if not the greatest, luger of all time. Lives in Miesbach, that being Natalie Geisenberger. Two-time defending world junior champion.
So he's already almost 1/10 of a second behind, and they were nearly tied after the first run. So he'll have to execute this bottom section of the track probably perfectly in order to make up that deficit. And it's building to 1/10.5, so I don't think we'll see him maintain his position, but dropping back one spot is what he's shooting for now. He doesn't know that's what he's shooting for. He's shooting to win, but we'll see.
That's right, he does. He falls back one spot ahead of Poland, behind Latvia. It'll be interesting to see. I have no updates on David Nussler, who injured himself a couple of weeks ago. Germany, of course, can field 4 at the World Championships, and if Nussler can't go, I wonder if they'll take Marco Lager, whether someone else is waiting, or they'll race with 3.
Well, I hope to see David Nussler and Whistler. It's such a horrible thing when an athlete has to sit out due to injury. So hopefully he's ready to compete in a few weeks.
Exciting opening weekend for this athlete. As run number 2 continues here in Oberhof, Germany, Tim Singer, along with 5-time World Cup winner Summer Britcher, Kaspars Rinks of Latvia, grabbing those handles. As you mentioned, Summer, in run number 1, it's a very precarious start ramp for the men.
That's right. It's very short, and it does smoothly go right into the first curve, which should make it easy. But because it's such a short ramp, it's tough to actually get strong, powerful paddles in and get a good settle in before the curve starts. So it's almost a little bit of a rush to get a competitive start in before you need to be in your sled, sliding, ready to go. He's having very smooth transitions. I spoke a little soon there. He hung on the end of curve a little bit, but he handled that very well, stayed so calm with that mistake.
What are the hands holding on to? Anything? Are there handles on the side of the sleds?
So we have handles that attach directly to one of the front bridge, which is actually what you see coming out of the pod and connecting to the coofins. So the handles are a way you can really directly manipulate the bridge to steer, as well as steering against the coofins.
That's fascinating. And it's also a little extra insurance that you'll hang on to the sled if there's a crash.
Definitely.
Which is required, basically.
Yes, it's one of the number one rules when you start sliding is if you crash, you hold onto your sled, because it's not only, you don't want to break your equipment if you let go of your sled. It's at much more risk of any damage, but it's dangerous for the athlete as well, and potentially spectators. So it's important to try your best to try to hold onto your equipment when things go wrong.
Leon Felderer's 24-year-old athlete, part of the military program out of Latzfans, South Tyrol. His lists as his favorite luge athlete, Armin Zugler, which is probably required among these Italian athletes to say Armin, but of course Armin is a hero to many in this sport.
Arguably maybe one of the best 6 Olympics, starting at 19 and an Olympic medal at every one. Nobody else has a statistic like that in any sport.
Right. We hear about Michael Phelps and all of these guys racking up 30 Olympic medals, but they have 7 or 8 events.
That's
Armin
right.
had 1 event in 6 different Olympics.
2014 was the first Olympics where we had a second medal event for luge.
Right, exactly.
Big mistakes there. Oh, wow. Wow.
Leon over, hanging onto the sled, getting a finish time, and will race later today. That has to hurt.
That was really an impressive way for him to fight every single second of that almost crash. I mean, the way he rode 14 with 1 runner that whole way. I mean, it's not what he wanted. It's a bummer, but that was so impressive.
I speak of that often, the great athleticism. If you don't think lugers are athletes, what it takes to keep that sled on the ice, even when you have problems such as this.
So see, he's too early over to that wall. It bumps him away. He hits this other wall, sends him into a skid, hits the curve, loop. The pressure catches and brings him almost into a flip. That would normally flip where you go face first into the curve, and he's fighting, giving everything he has to try to stay on his sled and finish that run.
Yeah, and Summer, that's actually a timely example of what we were just speaking about the handles on the sled, because without those handles, it could have gotten away from him pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Well, I think he's all right.
Yeah, we hope he's okay. That's a rare look of frustration from Leon, and justifiably. The race continuing without really much of a delay for Josef Ninis of Slovakia. What were you doing, Summer, when Josef competed in his first Olympics in Torino in 2006?
I was getting ready to head up to Lake Placid, New York, and try out for the U.S. development luge team.
Okay,
so I was a few weeks out from my screening camp.
So maybe you were inspired by watching Josef and some of the others at the Torino games.
maybe.
Josef could move this into the green pretty quickly. This is where he finds his speed. Let's check out this split.
There was a bit of a skid there. You could actually hear it more than see it. So if you're trying to see when a sled is skidding, the 2 obvious ways are if you see ice or the sled is sideways, that's pretty obvious. Any ice spraying up is a skid, and also if you hear a sharp kind of scratching sound, even if you don't see ice spraying up, that's a skid as well.
Well, Latvia's Gins Berziņš has now moved up 4 spots from 17th place to a top 13, so a good run for him. And let's hope the track's doing okay here. We've seen a lot of mistakes in the last few sleds, more than we saw in all of run 1.
And it could be the ice. It could be these athletes knowing it's pretty tight times in this section of the rankings, and they have an opportunity if they really put down a great run to move up. And sometimes when you're giving it your all and really trying to take risks on the track, that's when mistakes are going to happen.
Tucker West has about 14 hundredths on the current leader, Ginsten Beersens. Tucker, a three-time winner in the World Cup. All of those race victories were in North America, and notably one of them was in Whistler, where the World Championships will be staged in a couple of weeks.
That's right. We should get a stat as well when we talk about German victories, about how many of their victories are on German tracks.
Yes.
Because it's, you know, almost half of our races every year are actually contested in Germany.
That's right. 4 tracks when they're all in operation. And when the 4 tracks in Germany are not all operating, they'll repeat another track to guarantee a 4th race.
That's right.
Tucker well out in front here as this clock stops with a nice exit of 13. Only 800ths.
It
Now
should be enough, though,
close.
so far at the bottom to carry him. He lost a bit of
Tucker
time, but did maintain his lead.
Hangs on. He'll hang on to a top 12. He'll be the top placing American in today's race. And we'll see Tucker a little later on this afternoon with teammate Ashley Farquharson in the mixed singles event. It was only the 3rd fastest start time, and Tucker is regarded as the fastest starter in the world. I don't think there's any doubt about that, Summer, but different tracks suit different athletes.
Definitely. Both on the start and the whole way down the hill, different tracks suit different athletes. And something Tucker's exceptionally strong at is the reaction start, which we'll see later today.
So the women go first in mixed singles?
No, the men go first.
Oh, but they have a reaction?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, we'll check that out. We'll know again, such a new sport. Svante Koala in 11th place after run number 1, Team Sweden. It's a family affair. Svante's sister competes, his cousin competes, his mother is an International Luge Federation official. A thousandth of a second his advantage, quickly lost now to Tucker West.
But back in the green and back in the red.
Yeah, these are those fun runs for the stoplight keeps changing.
Bumped a little early there, but got the height he needed. 200ths back. This is going to be very close.
First, second, or third will give him his best result of the season.
He is losing time on Tucker, so I think we will see a second place here.
And we do. 500ths back. Tucker moves up 1 spot, and for Koala, this 12th place finish as his mom watches Ann Koala over on the left. This will be maybe a career best, certainly a season's best on the World Cup for this Swedish athlete.
That's right, and there's still room to improve. 12th.
Yeah, it's great.
At worst. Training
with the Austrians doesn't hurt.
No, definitely not. We have several partnership programs like that. Team Japan with Team USA, Swedish team with the Austrian team, Team Australia with the Canadian team, Swiss with Germany, and Argentina with Germany.
Looks like Christers is smiling up there at the start. Why not? A luge ride from top to bottom is fun, even in the most trying of conditions, right, Summer?
That's right, and that's the attitude you need to have.
Christers 11th place after run number 1. Actually top 10 in 10th place. And his lead, though, only 400ths over Tucker West after the first heat. And as you see, West, at least with the quicker top half. But again, red to green to red.
We're seeing the same thing. It's a close run, and we're seeing... Really, they must be neck and neck to see the timing flash from red to green like that. It should be, I mean, technically, the real indication we have is at each split time. But something's going on when you see the color change from red and green. It's the anticipated lead, I think.
This is the most I remember seeing in a long time. Now it's trending in his favor when it matters. And he does take his lead, holding onto his spot in the top 10. Krister is currently ranked 5th in the World Cup standings with 1 podium. It's a bit of a drop-off from last season, where he finished in 2nd place behind Max Langenhagen in the overall points.
Yeah, we've seen kind of a huge shift in the standings and the results from last year to this year in men's singles. I don't want to say it's totally unheard of, but generally you expect maybe a little bit of an upset from year to year, but really very different results from what we were seeing last year.
126.677, the two-run combined time. As we move to our next of the Germans, Timon Grancagnolo throws that shield down, adjusts the face mask, grabs those handles, one final exhale. Hopefully that happened before the shield came down. And now the 21-year-old from Chemnitz near Altenburg on course. Really quickly, Summer, with the World Championships coming up, I ask a lot of the commentators this same question, but the Olympics are 4 runs, the World Cup is 2 runs, and the World Championships basically mirror the World Cup. So what makes that race in Whistler so special other than it being called the World Championships?
Well, everything only has the importance that we give it, right?
Right, okay.
It was previously a more unique format with having the cut after this for the second run to top 20. Now the World Cup format is more similar. Small difference, I believe 10 athletes from the non-seeded group will go first in the singles events, at least. So it'll be slightly different, but yeah, it's World Championships. For me, that's enough. Just knowing that this is the race we've decided is the big one and what we've been working towards all season.
A lot of enhanced ceremonies and pageantry. As you just saw, Grancagnolo behind Aperiot by 1,000th of a second. Now, I asked Emily whether she thought maybe the World Championship should have 4 runs. What do you think?
I don't feel too strongly either way. I could see the benefits to either side. I think bobsled and skeleton does it that way, so it's the same format as the Olympics. It would be really nice to have that type of experience. It would make the Olympics a lot less stressful, but it's quite a lot of racing at World Championships already. So I think adding in 2 more race runs would really make it a bit more of a marathon than a sprint. But I could see benefits to either format, honestly.
Austria's Alex Ferlazzo with very much an up and down season that has been up the last few weeks. The 5th place finisher at last year's World Championships for Australia.
Very late to curve 8 there. And he bumped early to curve 11, but got a little lip in the sled. Yeah, his run started out really nice, but he's just sort of having mistake after mistake. He is minimizing them, but I'm not surprised to see the time dropping away here with those mistakes.
Fall back 4 or 5 spots, 7 spots, 127.033, and what has been a frustrating, somewhat mysterious season for Alex Ferlazzo. He's comfortable in Whistler, where he's done a lot of training with Team Canada. And we'll see him later today with Natalie Mogg of Switzerland, who comes off of a podium of her own.
Really so much height there, and then you see him bump that transition, get a little skid, a little lift on his sled. Sort of hangs here on the end of the curve too much. His steel slaps down onto the ice and then sends him too early to curve 12.
We move now to our final athlete, not from Germany or Austria. This is one-time World Cup overall champion, Dominik Fischnaller. 3 paddles, pretty smooth settle, and smooth is an adjective you can certainly apply to Dominik Fischnaller from top to bottom.
Absolutely. He's a very consistent, very smooth slider. Sometimes the speed is there, sometimes it's not, but generally he puts together 2 quality race runs.
Bronze medal winner at the Beijing Olympics. This season's World Cup will conclude on that track in China. This is a good run.
Very nice run. Beautiful exit of 13. Pushes his head back going into the final curve.
It was 43.277 in run number 1. He betters that which is not normally the trend late in run number 2. So the ice is good, and Dominic is even better.
Und jetzt haben wir 4 Österreicher hintereinander. Jonas Müller beginnt, dann David Gleicher.
Really pushes his position there. That was a fantastic run from Dominic. He can be proud of that.
He just said hi to Emily, I believe. And we move to the Austrians, and Jonas Müller, it's scary to think how fast his time would have been in run number 1, Summer, because as you'll recall, he had about as many mistakes as anyone, and despite that, he's in 6th place in this race.
That's right. Well, with that, you know, everyone behind him that had good runs is very frustrated, but if I remember correctly, most of those mistakes were lower in the track.
So he had the speed.
So he had the speed, and it definitely cost him, but not as much as having those same mistakes in any other spot on the track.
Sure. Jonas, one of the few Austrians not from the Innsbruck area. He grew up in the far west part of the country, where they now have a track in Luge, Austria.
And much better run than his first run.
We just saw Dominic better his first run time. As far as Jonas, he's actually a little off of his first run pace. He has a 43.147 in run number 1. He's about 600ths behind that, but he does hang on to his spot in the top 6.
And that was actually, that second run was behind Dominic's second run, so with a cleaner run, I would have expected to see him go a bit faster, so I'm wondering if they chose to go with a bit of a safer setup. And that bumped a bit early there, but we see that from so many of the athletes. So it's possible that up top they said, hey, we're going to back off, have a little bit more of a stable setup, and just go for a smooth run over speed. But those are the secrets.
It just doesn't seem like that doesn't seem like the Austrian way, though, does it?
I couldn't tell you, but maybe when you have 4 athletes up there, you can kind of pick and choose and say, okay, we'll make you more stable, we'll risk it with you, because they have, when you have 4 athletes sitting up there in 3 through 6, you have the opportunity to kind of try out different things maybe.
Come on, cut!
That's the voice of Peter Pence in the background. Pence, an Olympic medal winner at the 2018 Games in doubles and Olympics, where this man was the surprise gold medal winner in men's singles. David Gleicher now on ice, looking for his 3rd podium of the season.
He's behind his teammate more than halfway down the track. Over a 10th behind. We may see him, and now he's gaining back time.
But he had a little bit of steering in the straightaway to 14. Can't quite catch it, but you're right, Summer. He really cut into Jonas's lead over those last 4 or 5 curves.
Yeah, at the end, towards the end there, I thought we'd see him come down behind Dominic, but he really found some speed at the very bottom of the track.
Austria leading, 1st and 2nd place. Italy in 3rd, Latvia in 4th. We've got our top 4 still getting ready at the top.
Peter's not too happy with that one.
The 3rd of the 4 Austrians getting ready now. Wolfie Kindl. Not only did the Austrians sweep 1, 2, 3, 4 at 2 of the races this year, including here in Oberhof, I believe maybe only 2 or 3 times this season has there been no Austrian in the top 10. That's how deep and dominant this nation has been. But they're still trying to catch up to the Germans here in this men's singles race. Kindl briefly behind Jonas Müller. We anticipate that'll turn green. if Wolfie does what Wolfie normally does.
This next split will be a great indication of that. So only 6 thousandths behind, so he is gaining on Jonas and into the green already. We may see this be over a 10th lead here at the bottom. Just about a 10th.
Wow, you called that, Summer. Pretty much spot on, and Wolfie did very little wrong. He is the only men's athlete remaining in the sport that competes in both singles and doubles. And I'm not sure of the lineup, but I would guess, Summer, given the depth of the men's singles program, despite the fact that Wolfie may be the fastest finisher of the Austrians, he'll probably take part in doubles.
I'm not sure. I think that'll.
I'll take a look at that lineup right now while you give us your expert analysis.
I think it'll come down to team policy. But I imagine if he says, "Hey, I'll be ready to compete. I have the energy for another run after the mixed doubles," I imagine they'll say, "All right, give it your best go."
It's nice to have 3 doubles teams and 4 singles teams for the men, where you can just pick and choose. I think I've got him tentatively penciled in with Stoy going up alongside Egla Kip later today. But now the matter at hand, Nico Gleischer. He's tied with Max Langenhahn atop the points in the World Cup. Nico, a 3-time winner this season on the World Cup, or check that twice, with 4 total podiums. So he trails Langenhahn by 2 spots after run number 1. First things first, he'll need to nail this.
So far, really beautiful run from Nico. A little late to 9, but that's okay if you use it to get the height through 10 to get you a nice entrance to 11, which he did. He did a very nice job there. He's 5 thousandths behind. So this is going to be close. We've seen some crazy speed built by these Austrians down low, but it looks like it was working for his teammates more than him.
Nico 600ths behind Wolfgang Kindl. Wolfie is on the podium for the 2nd time this season, and the first podium for Wolfgang Kindl since the opening race in Lillehammer. A little bit of a competition among the Austrians. Didn't seem too many problems, did you, Summer?
No, I mean, he was a little, I think I said early to 9. No, he was late to 9. I don't remember. He did something wrong going into 9, which gave him a little bit too much of a swing into 10, but he handled it very well. I mean, really, overall, it looks like a great run. So it just comes down to sometimes things we're not seeing, how they're blending onto the curves. I mean, when you have teammates and you're seeing different things, you can't really point to the equipment. You can't say, like, okay, well,
sure,
maybe it's a better setup. They have the same coaches working on those sleds, the same knowledge. So it's coming down to who's sliding better.
That may not be the case for the next 2, with Felix Lach and Max Langenhahn from 2 different regions in Germany. So the Germans now have a little bit of extra breathing room. Here's Felix Lach, one of the greatest all time, and he'll be headed back to Korea later on this season, where I'm sure curve number 9 in Pyeongchang has been haunting him for the past 6.5 years. So he'll look to get a little bit of a revenge.
I think his big error was further down the track in the 4th run. It was out of curve. It was 14-15, either out of 14 or out of curve 15. Yeah.
Maybe I just got so used to problems in 9.
It was so long ago, but I think he was still in the lead in the 4th run until a major mistake out of curve 14 or 15.
Nonetheless, there's your perfect aerodynamic position here on a track he knows so well. Lach across the finish, 43.127. Germany has won this race officially, and now we'll wait to see which German will stand atop the podium. Felix Lach in first place with teammate Max Langenhahn getting ready at the start. It's fun how it's still exciting after all of these years. Summer, you've been at it for so many years, and it really doesn't get mundane, does it?
No, and, you know, people wouldn't still be here competing if they didn't still love it. And Felix, I think, very clearly has so much love for the sport still. I believe I think his son has started sliding, so getting the third generation. I'm ready as well. So it seems like a generational family endeavor for the Locke family, and I think that's a really beautiful thing to see.
A win for Felix would be career victory number 53 on the World Cup, as his dad celebrates as well. 53 would be just 4 wins behind the great Armin Ziegler in the all-time list. So a hug from Patrick Leitner, and they will both turn their attention to the top. And here is the defending world champion, the defending World Cup overall champion, and now pretty much guaranteed first place if he can put it down cleanly. If not first in the race, he'll hold on to his lead in the World Cup standings. Max Langenhahn on course.
Almost a 2/10 lead already is such a comfortable spot to be in. Really pushed back. Beautiful position for Max on the sled.
Not to jinx anything, but I don't even remember when the last time I saw Max make any significant mistake that would cost him 2/10 of a second.
And now it's almost 2.5 tenths. Yeah, I mean, we can call it now. Beautiful exit of 13 into Kreisel. Beautiful run from Max for the victory.
The first to greet him at the finish will be teammate Felix Locke, as Langenhahn and Locke finish 1-2 in the standings here in Oberhof. A bit of revenge over the Austrians in their second go-around on this track, and peaking at the right time before the World Championships. I love it, Summer. Felix is so exuberant and Max is so chill.
It's a great balance to have with teammates.
Right. Max will open up about a 40-point lead over Nico Gleicher. Just like that, they came into the weekend tied in the World Cup standings. But now Max is placing himself as the man to beat, as he was in each of the last 2 seasons.
But it's certainly not over yet. Only a 40-point lead. That could change in one race.
Absolutely. 40-point lead heading to 2 relatively neutral tracks in Asia.
That's right. I don't think Nico or Max has been to Korea, been to the Pyeongchang track.
That could very well be. As you see, 2300s, Langenhahn over Locke. The Austrians packed together as they usually are. 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Fischnaller in 7th. Tucker West makes his way back into the top 10 here in run number 2. Great showing for Svante Koala. Terrific to see when in 11th. Alex Ferlazzo drops back a little, but still has one of his better results of the season, and we count them down to Leon Felderer, not to mention all of the others who took part in run number 1, many of whom we'll see in just a little bit in mixed singles. So, Summer, I'm going to let you have a hasty exit because I know you have to prepare for your race. Thanks a lot, as always, for the incredible commentary.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Sure. The best of luck to you and Johnny. That's Summer Britcher, Team USA. She'll get ready for the mixed singles event as we check out the presentation of flowers to Max Langenhahn, Felix Locke right there, and Wolfgang Kindl. For Max, this is career World Cup win, number 18, all of them over the past 3 seasons, 13 of them in the 2-run split, or the 2-run format. For the time being, we're still keeping those sprint victories among the World Cup overall count. I'll have to get a sampling of opinions on that. as I talk to other athletes and officials and what they think. I mean, Armin Ziegler's 57 World Cup victories included 0 wins in the sprint.
Also die ersten Sekunden war es rot, 106 stark. Das haben wir gleich dann nochmal in der Liegstaffel aufgenommen. Was haltet ihr davon?
World Cup standings, I believe the advantage is 40. It is 40 points Langenhahn over Nico Gleischer. Felix moves all the way up into the top 3, but then the Austrians, as well as Dominik Fischneller, are still hanging in the discussion. Those are your strong nations, at least in men's singles this season. 4 countries holding on to all of the top 10. Third place goes to Wolfgang Kindl, the Olympic silver medalist with his second podium position. Impressive when you consider he has a slew of podiums as well in doubles this season. Felix Lach, there have been very few seasons where Felix hasn't won at least one race. He's still looking for his first victory, but he has been very steady. And Max Langenhahn, clearly the best athlete in this sport over the past 3 seasons, maintains his advantage over the rest of the pack with a convincing win here on his home track, one of the most dominant performances of the season in terms of time advantage over the rest of the field. Just standing by for the interviews now.
Wolfi, congratulations being back on the podium again. How do you feel, especially after your crash that you had last week?
Yeah, it's amazing. Almost could not believe it when I saw the one in the finish, and my colleagues, they fell back. Yeah, so it's great, especially in Oberhof. It's not really my track because the start is really important, and I was really slow today at the start. But the performance in the track, it was really great. The material works perfect, and yeah, really glad to be on the podium. It's awesome. Thank you.
A clearly satisfied Wolfgang Kindl, who for the second time this season makes it onto the podium in both singles and doubles at the same race. Well, while we wait to hear from the Germans who finished in the top 2 spots, we will check out some highlights and hope to hear from them in a little bit, but we'll reset the stage for the second mixed singles and mixed doubles competitions of the season coming up in just a few minutes here in Oberhof. So until then, for my broadcast partner, Summer Britcher, as well as our entire FIL production crew, I'm Tim Singer. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you right back here in Oberhof really soon.
Aber es waren 109,2. Wollen wir die 110 schaffen? Dann holen wir jetzt ganz viel Luft. Bei 3 geht's los. 1,